God's holiness. C.S. Lewis probes the same story in search of new insights, all because, he says, we already knew the story's end. We just needed to live in the story. That's prayer. So let's look at a few of these petitions. If you remember the Lord's Prayer, Our Father, who art in heaven. Not a petition. It's an introduction. It's an acclamation, if you will. It's saying, I'm praying to my Father. Now, not just any Father, but my Father who is in heaven. It's very specific. And we're giving acclamation to our belief that we belong to God. We're part of his family. And we say that right off the top. And then we get into the petitions. Hallowed be your name. The Greek word is hagios. In other words, it means to make use of the sacred. So the first petition in the Lord's Prayer provides us the only legitimate basis for our request, and that's because we have the glory of God to turn to. Holy is your name. It's set apart. And that name represents God. That's why the Ten Commandments say, do not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Why? Because it's holy. It's more than just a name. It is God's name. And any time that we use it, it needs to be bringing us into a place that is holy and not one that is profane. Think of how you feel. I can use any one of your names outside this church with a whole group of people who don't know your name or don't know the name. I mean, they may know the name, but they don't know who it applies to. And it makes absolutely no difference, does it? For every Alfred in the world, I can say, and it won't make a bit of difference. But if I say something very specific about any one of your names, you feel it, don't you? It represents you. It's who you are. And everything that you have and everything that you are is wrapped up into that, as is God. Ancients actually believed that if you knew the name of a god, you could control the god. Well, we learned very quickly that ours can't be controlled. But still, knowing the name of God means we know something that not everyone knows. And that's his holiness. Holy is your name. Your will be done is the second petition. Imagine that. We belong to God, and so we're saying, God, it's not what I want to do, it's what you want to do. It's not my plan, it's yours. It's not my agenda, it's yours. It's not what's just good for me, it's what's good for you. Now that's hard to say, because none of us want to live that way. We all want what's good for me. The bottom line is, how is it going to affect me? But in prayer, we're saying, no, God. It's about you. What is your will? And your will be done. Because heaven knows I've tried to push my agenda. It tends to work out wrong. So God, I acknowledge that it's your will that needs to be done. These first three petitions all talk about the cause of God. Now the last four are going to relate to our own daily concerns. First is, right away, physical provisions. Give us this day our daily bread. Now when the author says bread, he's not referring just to baked bread. So any day that you don't have bread, you don't have God. No, he says, God, give us our physical provisions. Give us what we need physically to survive and to thrive. That's what that prayer petition is about. Does it strike you like it did me? First petition that we've got about ourselves, that we're praying for the the physical, the temporal, the here and now. Why would Jesus make that the first petition for us? Well, Jesus recognized that if we don't have our physical provisions met, it's very hard for us to hear the spiritual needs and to relate to God in a spiritual way. Try telling a hungry man all about God. Try telling the homeless of God's great and powerful love. It's difficult to do. So it's saying, God, first meet that physical need. Why? So I can clear away all of those distractions and be able to hear you. And immediately, it goes into a second petition. Forgive us our debts. Give us our daily bread and then forgive us our debts. Why? Well, there again, we need those cleared away in order to be put into the presence of God, in order to be able to pray in any kind of meaningful way. But this one comes with a proviso. You notice that? Forgive us our debts. What? As we forgive our debtors. Or forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I won't even go into all the cultural things that just means, but know this, there's not really any difference between the two. It's simply kind of a cultural background, whether you worked in a monetary society or whether you worked in a land-based society. That's how you translated the words. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. In other words, if we can't forgive those around us, shame on you if you come to God and say, but God, forgive me. I'm not going to forgive any one of you, but I know God will forgive me. I had an elder in my first church who was going through a very sinful time in his life. He had been in conversation with the board of elders over and over about it. And he repeated this phrase over and over again. He says, you know what? I don't care what you think. I don't need to know what you think. I don't care what you do. Why? Because I know everything's right with me and God. And you don't matter. He missed the point, didn't he? It does matter. There again, look at the cross as a visual example. There's two dimensions to that. There's a vertical between us and God, and there's a horizontal between us and each other. You have to be right on both planes. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Both relationships make a difference in our lives. And then it goes on to say, the next petition, and lead us not into temptation. That means that God is the one who leads us into temptation, right? No, that's not right. God doesn't lead us into temptation. Sometimes God lets us wander there. God, I'm going to do this thing whether you want me to or not. God says, okay. I'll be right here when you want to come back. Kind of like the prodigal son, right? Just give me my inheritance and let me go. Okay, that's what you want. And this petition is saying, Lord, never let me stray so far from you that I can't find my way back home. Don't lead me into a place that is so tempting that I don't see it for what it is. Lead me not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Now that's the next petition. Some would say that it says, deliver us from the evil one, from Satan himself. Could be either one. Look at the Greek and it could go either way. Deliver us from evil or deliver us from the evil one. In other words, don't let Satan have full sway over my life. Remember the conversation between God and Job? Between Job and Satan? Between Satan And God